Hey, what's going on? It's your boy TP back with another mini doc for Rich Thoughts. So today, man, we're talking about, well, I examined a Facebook post. Something I saw on Facebook, right? So it was a meme depicting two scenarios with the same two people. So both scenarios, the woman becomes pregnant, but how she proceeds about the pregnancy is different in both scenarios. So in the first scenario, she reveals to her significant other that she's pregnant. The man expresses his happiness over this news. She says she's not keeping it, she's not ready. He says, please don't do this. And she proceeds to move forward with the abortion, leaving the man hurt over the fact that he has no say. His child is now going to be killed, essentially. So that's the first scenario. Second scenario, she reveals she's pregnant. He expresses that he's not ready to be a father. She proceeds to have the baby anyway, so 9 months later she has the baby. And she's looking for him, she's expecting for him to be there, and he's still not ready. He's still not ready. He still expresses the same same feelings that he did when she initially told him 9 months prior. So then he proceeds to leave, and now she's standing there with the baby crying, wishing that he would stay. Now, and the question posed in relation to these two scenarios was, what's the difference between these two scenarios? And at the time when I checked it out, there was one comment, and the comment, the initial comment left was by somebody that I know personally. It was a woman. And her initial comment was, the difference is he doesn't risk dying during childbirth. Fair point, he doesn't. But the question was, what's the difference between the two? There were other comments to proceed. I commented after the initial comment. My input was the difference between these two scenarios is the maternal child support, because she has the child, she's gonna get child support, even if they live under the same household. I've seen it happen. So she doesn't have the child, then you can't enforce child support for something that doesn't exist. But if she has the child, regardless of what happens during the proceedings after the child is born, she can enforce child support at any point in time. If she decided she didn't like the way he washed her car, you know what I'm saying, and she was pissed, she could go to DFS and start requesting child support for a man that's supporting his child. So that was my input. Following that, there were several other entries by several other women. And let's see, let me pull them up really quick. Okay. The next comment following my own comment was, she's not, I'm reading them word by word. She's not the one he wants to carry his kids, so he just says he isn't ready. Okay? I'm gonna say that one more time because I think I read that a little weirdly, so you may not have caught that. She's not the one he wants carrying his kids, so he just says he isn't ready. Now that's in reference to the second scenario, when she expressed that she was pregnant, she was happy, and then he said he wasn't ready. This woman is saying that, oh, well, that's not the woman that he wants carrying his kids, so he just says he isn't ready. Okay. She kind of read more into what the scenario gave us, but okay. The next comment following that one, he's not carrying the kid. It's just that simple. It's word for word. He's not carrying the kid. It's that simple. So essentially, he has no say so because he doesn't have to endure childbirth. He doesn't have to go through the hormonal changes and everything that comes along with bearing a child. Okay. Free to, you have that right to choose. You're free to, you know what I'm saying, go about that the way that you choose to go about it. Following comment, touchy subjects. That's all they said. So clearly they didn't really want to put their opinion out there for anybody to pass judgment on them or to start a debate. So that's all they said. Going on to the last and final comment. The first girl is smart and knows what she can handle and what she's not ready for. The second one dumb and not understanding. He said he ain't ready. But men also rarely say they ain't ready. They act like they are until it's time, and then they talk about they ain't ready. Did you catch all that? So, okay. So this woman, I mind you, these are all women. I was the only man to comment. So this last comment, she says the first girl is smart. Now let's go back to the post. Now in the post, the first girl said she was pregnant. The man expressed his joy over the news, but she proceeded to go get an abortion because she wasn't ready. She didn't want to do it, right? But the man is left her sad and heartbroken. This woman says that woman is smart because she knew what she could handle. She says the second one is dumb. Now in the second scenario, the woman is pregnant. She's happy to be pregnant. She wants the baby. She wants the family. But the man doesn't want the baby because he's not ready to be a father. She proceeds to have the baby anyway, and then he proceeds to walk out of her life because he said he already expressed he wasn't ready yet. So now she's the one standing there hurt. And this woman is saying that woman was dumb because the man told her that he wasn't ready, and essentially she didn't trust in his word and went ahead and had the baby anyway, and he walked away, and now she's standing there with the baby and no support from the father. So all of this being said, man, to me it shows that there is an underlying there's an underlying bias. There's an underlying bias when it comes to raising a child. Because even before the child gets here, once the child has been conceived, everything that's discussed involving the child goes into raising the child. The mind state of the two parents involved, what they decide, how they prepare for that child's arrival, all of that goes into raising the child. And from what I dissect from most of these comments is, in the early stages, when it comes to the choice of going to term or terminating, it's just solely up to the mother. And I would be okay with that groupthink mentality if you had that same energy in both scenarios. I mean, most of these women, they seem very they waste no time asserting the point that it's their choice on whether or not they keep that child or not, and that's fine. That is your body. Though it does take two people to create life, ultimately that choice is yours. You have that right here in this nation to choose. But you also have to assume that same responsibility if you decide to have that child and that man doesn't want to have that child. If you decide to proceed and have that child, then you should assume full responsibility for that child. And you shouldn't be looking to enforce any type of support from the other parent. Because what we have to remember is, when you come into a situation having sex with one another, you risk, you take the you come into it knowing that there's a possibility that a life can spring forward from these actions, right? Even if we use protection, because protection is not 100% guaranteed. So the fact that we're having sex, and chances are for her to just come up pregnant, I mean, you guys are already having unprotected sex. So honestly speaking, from a reality standpoint, you're coming forward telling me you're pregnant. Chances are we weren't using protection, so we both came into this understanding the possible outcomes of having unprotected sex. So it begs the question, how can either party not be prepared for what's to come next? Neither party can honestly sit back and argue, oh, this is not what I wanted, because if you didn't want it, then you would have had protected sex versus unprotected sex. So you don't get to argue, oh, I'm not really ready for this, because you knew when you participated in the act that we have the ability to create a child, unless it was disclosed prior to sex that, hey, I'm sterile, I don't have the sperm count, or or her as the female, she's just incapable of housing a child. So we don't so we can't play victim when we willingly participate in sex, knowing that we can create a child. You can't play victim after the fact, like, oh man, this isn't what I wanted, because people often hide their true intentions. People often hide their true intentions until situations suit, until they stand to benefit from the situation. And another thing I noticed in reference to a lot of the comments is that not one of these women really took, excluding the last one, because she at least mentioned it, but no one else mentioned took into account the man's point of view. Like nobody bothered to speak on that half of the scenario, which is a little surprising, because I mean, it takes two to create this child, and most women, whether they have most women are going to seek that financial support once that child has been born. And the first comment, he's not the one who will risk dying carrying the child. It's interesting that she said that, because I know her personally, and she's had a child with a guy who she isn't with. So they had some type of relationship. They end up having this child. She is the primary caretaker of that child, and I've overheard her in past conversations speak ill on his father. I don't know him personally, so I can't confirm or deny any of that, because there are two sides to both stories. But I've heard her speak ill on his name because she claims he doesn't care for him financially like he should. He doesn't, see him enough and things of that nature, which, I mean, I can't attest to. That's just your side of the story. I mean, it could be layered to the fact that she could be upset that he didn't want to commit to being a family with her and him, and maybe he just wanted to be a part of his son's life, and they just co-parent, which is a strong possibility, because that happens a lot, and that happens a lot in broken families. Families are often broken when a child is brought up, and the mother will often try to leverage the child against the father to secure him. And then when it doesn't work, then they use the child as the child becomes a scapegoat, for her to. The child becomes a tool of revenge against the father. Oh, okay. Well, if you don't love me, then you don't get to see your child. And a lot of states sway their laws in favor of the mothers, just based off the simple fact that they are mothers. So then you have this situation where the child has been brought into this world between two parents that don't see eye to eye, and it's solely because one parent is emotionally attached to the other parent, and they can't have that parent, and so now they use the child as a tool of revenge to get back at the other parent for not loving them. And that happens. So I think it's interesting that, the stance that most of these women took is, oh, he doesn't take this risk on dying, he doesn't have to bear the kids, and oh, he just don't want her to bear his kids, so he say he isn't ready. It's almost like they were attacking the man in this in these scenarios, and that speaks to their experience with men, because a woman that has a man that's a good father, and respects the fact that he is a good father, she would be adult enough to put her pride to the side and allow him to be a good father. And then she would also, her respect for him would also reflect in how she speaks about him. She wouldn't speak ill of him. She wouldn't falsify his characteristics to feed the narrative that he's a terrible father, when in reality he's a great father, but he just didn't want to commit to being your man, your husband, or whatever the case is. And I can speak to that because I've lived through it. I've lived through a situation where seeing this girl, it was a relationship based around sex, and she decided she wanted to be more than just a sexual partner, and I expressed to her that I didn't want that. That's not what I was looking for. And so she felt that if she had my child, that it would sway it would change my perspective, and I would want to be a family, and it didn't. I mean, her having my child didn't change my perspective on how I viewed her. It didn't change my feelings toward her. I love my child. I cried when I laid eyes on him, but I mean, my feelings for her didn't change. Like, she was just still who she was to me. You know what I'm saying? She was just the chick I was having sex with. And by the time my child was born, we had long since stopped having sex, because I realized the game she was playing, because that's game. You know what I'm saying? To sit there and try to have a child to force somebody to be in a relationship with you, that's a game. You know what I'm saying? That's manipulation. And I wasn't going to be manipulated, so I had to show her that I can cut this off and still be, you know what I'm saying, be here for my child. We had that conversation about abortion. She told me she was pregnant. She asked me what did I want to do, and to be honest, it didn't matter what I wanted to do, because ultimately I understood that the choice was hers. Whether she wanted to have the child, whether she didn't want to have the child, the ultimate choice was hers. So regardless of how I felt, whether I wanted to have him or whether I didn't want to have him, it wasn't my decision to make, because I couldn't make her go and get the abortion, nor could I make her sit down and have the baby. So my input really didn't matter in the grand scheme of her plan. Or her in reality, it didn't matter what I wanted, because if she didn't have the baby and I wanted them, well, I wouldn't have 2 children right now. I would only have 1. And if she wanted to have the baby and I didn't want to have the baby, well, I would be a deadbeat. I'd be a deadbeat, a horrible father. What else? My name would receive so much slander, and my name still has received a whole lot of slander, and I am in my child's life. So ultimately, I mean, the man is in a lose-lose situation unless he has absolute trust in this woman and has vetted her from front to back. Because this woman that I had a child with, I thought she was a cool person. She had never done anything wrong to me, but there were signs that she hinted at who she was based on how she was treating other people. I just didn't pay attention to it because it was never targeted toward me. Not until I pissed her off and didn't fall in line into her plan. So to my point, it doesn't matter what the father really wants. It's all about what the mother decides to do. She decided to have the baby. I told her that whatever she decided to do, I'd support her. I told her that I wouldn't ask for an abortion because I felt it was contradictory for me to ask for her to get an abortion when I knew we had unprotected sex. I knew going into having unprotected sex that we could possibly have a child. And so how do I look asking you to get an abortion when we just could have had protected sex, or we could have had no sex at all? And then neither one of us would be in this situation. So I didn't ask her to get an abortion. I told her if she had the child, I would support her. I would be there for her and the child, And for her, I'm there for her because I'm there for you in the sense that I'm here supporting my son, so the load is not completely on you. You know what I'm saying? Let's just work together to, for the best interest of the child. So everything was cool until he was born, and she really realized that I wasn't going to sway on my decision just because you had a child. Because you didn't have him. I won't say had him for me because she didn't have him for me. She had him for herself. She had him because she thought my love for him would transfer to her, and then we would all be one big happy family. So she had the baby for selfish reasons to try to lure me in, and when it didn't work, then she looked for any and every reason she could to keep me separated from my child. And so that's why I find it very interesting that so many women took that stand. Oh, it's my choice, and because ultimately it is, but have that same energy if the man decides he doesn't want to be there, and it's a shame that women hold all the chips in a situation like that, where if she decides to have the baby and he doesn't want to have the baby, let's say he wanted to travel, let's say his job requires him to travel a lot, and he was only in your state for like a month, and now he's going like 3 states away, and he's got to work there for a little while, and that's why he didn't want to have the child. It may not matter to her. She has the child, and now he has this child in this other state that he doesn't get to, that he can't really commit to fathering because he travels for work. And it puts him in an awkward position, because then it allows her to paint the picture that he didn't want you. He's a bad father. He isn't consistent in fathering, So it's not a good look. And then she can also go to the state and enforce child support for a child that he didn't want. Whereas if she doesn't want the child, she just doesn't have to have the child, She can go get an abortion, and if he wanted that child, then he's deprived the joy and the experience of fatherhood at that particular time simply because she didn't want to do it. She can opt out, and it's a win-win for her either way. If she doesn't want the child, she can just have an abortion and continue to live her life. If she wants the child, she can have the child, and if she wants extra financial support, then she can go to the state and they'll enforce it, and now he has to come out of pocket for a child that he may not have wanted. Versus if he wants the child, she can decide she can go get an abortion and he has no child. If he doesn't want the child, she can have the child and then enforce financial assistance from him. So it's a double standard. It's a big double standard surrounding parenthood and birth, abortion. Big double standard. And you see the contradictions and the bias in what a lot of these women said. Nobody wanted to, you know what I'm saying? Nobody stepped outside of their femininity to, you know what I'm saying, look at it from the other side and be objective about the realities of these scenarios. You know, they only spoke of it from a personal point of view, which is biased. You know, because if we go forward looking at everything based on how it affects us and us alone, I mean, it's not, that's all subjectivity, it's bias, it's contradictory, and it just doesn't help. It just doesn't help you find a real solution to whatever the problem is. So all that being said, man, I'm gonna bring this video to a close. It's been your boys, Heavy Pinning Rest Down. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to the page, man. We got more content coming. I already got another video I'm working on, man, so stay tuned. Stay tuned, man. Turn up and tune in with your boy, man. DeMarco will be back on the show when we get back to St. Louis, man. I really can't wait to get back, man, because I miss my boy. I really want to get, you know what I'm saying? I miss shooting with him. So, man, that's it, man. That's all I got for y'all, man. I'm out. Peace.